This is the DallasCowboys.com Draft Show. Your war room for insider news and draft analysis from deep within the confines of Cowboys headquarters at the Star in Frisco.
And now, your host, Kyle Youmans.
Today is Tuesday, January 7th, 2025, and we are officially 107 days away from the 2025 NFL Draft as we welcome you to the first episode of the Draft Show presented by Miller Lite, live from the Star in Frisco, Texas, and the SWBC studios. It is show number 1 of 40 shows over the next couple of months to get you ready for the NFL Draft, what is going to be a massive haul for the Cowboys this year, and we've got a massive crew to welcome in. Some new faces, some returning faces. I call it the Avengers of draft coverage around Dallas Cowboys media. So lots to look forward to. I'm your host, Kyle Youmans. This is my 6th season hosting the draft show in some capacity as we go into the draft. Again, we've got Bryan Broaddus. I put on our rundown that this is year number 1,321 covering the draft for Bryan Broaddus. Good to have you back.
Thank you very much. I want to say this. You're going to introduce some new cats to this thing.
Yeah.
And I wonder where the donuts are, boys. You know, I mean, for the other scouts, you got to bring the donuts and the bagels. That's kind of a scouting tradition. When you show up at a school, you got to bring donuts and bagels here. So we got some learning to do here.
There's a little bit of room over there. I will wrestle everybody up in here to not bring no bagels or donuts. Appreciate y'all for having me.
We got Voch Lombardi joining us. Voch, you've been creating Cowboys content for how long now?
I've been doing Cowboys too long to even count. You know, once you've been doing it long enough, it's just part of your life. It is what it is. Yeah. But, hey, man, play ball, coach a little bit of ball, but I've been talking crap on YouTube for a long time.
I love it, man.
Appreciate y'all for having me.
And now we get it on our airwaves.
There you go.
I expect nothing different, by the way. I've been a fan of your content since we started talking back in 2020 about all this stuff and just getting you involved with Dallas Cowboys content moving forward. They call it the mothership from all the creators. I don't classify us as the mothership. I classify us as at least the closest here. So now you get some access. Yeah. You get some opportunity. This is going to be awesome. We're excited to have you.
They're going to be kicking me out of here and calling security.
Let's go.
Get me out of here. So
that would be a win in my book. We've also got Tommy Yarrish, his first season with the draft show as well. Tommy, your background, you come from Chicago, went to the University of Texas, which that'll be an interesting conversation. There's a lot of Texas cats in the draft this year. What's your background going into the draft?
Yeah, I've covered every level of football in the state of Texas. Spent a lot of time in high school, college at University of Texas, and now with the Cowboys. Just wrapped up my first regular season covering the Cowboys beat. So super excited to be on the draft show. I love college football, so this is going to be a lot of fun, and I love breaking down college guys. And like you said, there's a lot of Texas guys that could look forward to in Dallas and beyond. Last Texas guy they picked worked out pretty well for
them. Yeah, that worked out pretty good, didn't it? And then we've got this guy. It feels like it's just a year ago today we were talking about your background. You're now a seasoned veteran with this draft stuff.
Yeah, so let's move on. Let's
Nick Harris, what's going on, dude?
Yeah, it's going good. It's
now
going
with
good.
The Fort
I'm
Worth
ready to be back.
Star-Telegram?
Yep. Yeah. Happy to be back. This is going to be an interesting draft cycle. I think we got a lot to talk about even right off the bat. But I'd been studying this class a little bit more in depth than I think where I was at this point last year. Learned and applied from my process from a year ago. So I got a little bit of a head start this year. So I feel good about where I'm at.
Oh, so that means we're relying on you pretty quickly here.
Hey, feel free.
Where
Feel
Nick,
free.
Where
Put
Nick
it
is
on
really
me.
good is with those last names
all
of
the
those,
names.
all the last names of the players we can't pronounce.
Ole Miss edge rusher.
Princely
Umanmielen.
No way.
Yeah.
You were close.
No way.
Umami Yellen.
I covered the kid.
Go back and listen to it. Princely Umami Yellen.
6 minutes.
I'm telling you right now.
draft show debate.
Already got our first.
Umami Yellen.
Umami Yellen.
Okay. All right.
Yeah,
Umami
I
Yellen.
promise
I'll hold you
you
to it.
that's what it is.
There's going to be another one in a couple of years out of where did he end up? Prince Will, his little brother.
Nebraska.
He ended up at no, he transferred. I think
Oh,
he
no,
ended
you're
up
right.
at Florida.
You ended up, Ole Miss.
Ole Miss? Okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there's going to be
So
more
they're
of them.
together at Ole Miss?
Well, now he just got there. He just
Sure.
got there.
Okay,
Yeah,
got it. Well, we've got a lot to look forward to. New faces, returning members. We're excited. We'll also join Zach Wolchuk, Bobby Belt. They'll join the show as well starting on Thursday. So we'll have a rotation of everybody moving through. So don't worry. You'll get to hear from those guys very soon. I want to start with positions of need. What did we learn from this 2024 season around the Cowboys specifically? I know we're going to talk a lot of prospects. This isn't just a Cowboys draft show, but with all the concern across the hall and all the intrigue going on between the coaching staff and the front office and what's going to happen over these next few weeks. Nick, I'll start with you. In terms of the Cowboys, what direction are we headed in terms of this draft?
Yeah, I think it's really dependent on what shakes out over the next couple of weeks too. There's a lot of decisions that have to be made up front before we can really get, or before this front office can really get into the nitty gritty of position needs and things of that nature. Because you have Will McClay on an expiring contract, you have a scouting department that is mostly on an expiring contract. All of the coaches on this coaching staff are in limbo at the moment, trying to await their fate. So certain coaches prioritize different positions and different skill sets. So what exactly this staff looks like from a coaching perspective and from a front office and scouting perspective could look a lot different on February 1st than it did on January 1st. So, but I mean, if we're looking at it from a holistic view, holistic lens, and trying to understand, hey, this is a roster need, you could look at almost every position and you can make a case that there's some need there. You look at the free agents that are departing out of the door. I think last year we had a pretty good case to say, hey, they don't need a quarterback, they don't need a tight end, but everything else you can pretty much make a case for. And they went out and they added some help at almost every position other than safety, if I could think off the top of my head. But this time around, I feel like they need to use these 10, 11 picks, depending on how many they get, to really address every position on both sides of the ball.
Bryan, you've been around coaching changes and levels like this. Going into
the reason why we had a coaching change a couple times.
Going into just an offseason of uncertainty.
Yeah.
Whenever it comes to an NFL franchise, how much does that hinder or how much does that help a draft process when you go into it?
Continuity is the scout's best friend. You look at organizations like the Pittsburgh Steelers and others that have had their coaches in place for long periods of time. As a scout, one of your advantages you have is when you do have that continuity, you're able to go out and scout players that your coaches want. When you have change, that then all of a sudden turns in. Voch and I do a show together, and we talk about this one night that when you have this change and then you have a new staff come in, maybe some players you didn't particularly think fit. Now, your current club, now you're having to go back and look. So you're really kind of doing double the work. And, maybe in your mind you're thinking, okay, we've got coaches on one-year deals. We could have a change. I need to be aware, because some guys you'll just naturally eliminate because, hey, he's not a fit. The height, weight, speed parameters are not correct here. So you move on from guys. You get a new staff in here, man, that kind of changes. They come in, they want a totally different type of player. And that's why you see some of these teams sometimes when you look at their team when they're out there on the field, they look mismatched. Some of the teams that have continuity, their team looks really the same physically. You get a team that has a lot of turnover. Sometimes your players look up and down that way. So it's not having that continuity, it really, really hurts your scouting department.
And, of course, the Cowboys have gone through that in a minor way the last couple of years. Changes at defensive coordinator.
Yeah.
Dan Quinn had his guy. Right. Had his guys that he liked. Right. And then you get Mike Zimmer that comes in here, says even at the end of the regular season, man, I wish I would have done it my way initially.
He said, Nashawn Wright, get out of here.
That was very quick. In training camp, that didn't last very long. But, Voch, I know you've kept an eye on this team, watch a lot of film.
Yes, sir.
Where do they start?
I tell you what, we have stars, and y'all can hear me say this a bunch, but we need role players. Everybody say it with me. We need role players. Okay? So think about this, right? We've been waiting, man, when are we going to use Turpin? When are we going to, create his role, right? And we eventually got to it, but we need 7 more of those guys to where, hey, we're in this situation. Deploy. That do this, right? We need more of that. We have a Micah, but Micah needs a running mate. We have a Lamb, but okay, you're just going to triple and double and bracket them all day. Let's get somebody over here that can take pressure off of that guy. So it's not just one thing that we're looking for. And online, they'll say, oh, we need all things. I think what we're going to have to, just breaking down film, we just going to have to figure out, okay, what's important to us? We may be looking at, okay, cool, Malachi Starks, he's available for us. Can I live without, one tech? Can I live without 3 tech? Can I live without wide receiver 2? Running back. We're going to be saying bad things about Ashton Jeanty, right? Ashton Jeanty is fantastic, but somebody's going to say running back's not important right now, Voch. Yeah. We need to build D-line. We don't know what we're doing with our last 2 first-round picks. So, hey, man, role players. Players.
What do you think, Tommy?
Yeah, no, I think Voch hit the nail on the head. This team has their core, right? The entire message we've gotten from the front office has been we want Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, and Micah Parsons. There's your cornerstones of the franchise. Well, you got to surround them with something, because you can't rely on 3 people in a 22-man game. So I think that, Nick made a good point in the sense that this year's class and how Dallas should approach it is, man, they're going to need help in a lot of spots. I mean, I put down defensive line, wide receiver, corner, offensive line. I think you've got an argument, safety, running back.
Yeah,
everything.
So really, yeah, everything. And it's going to be a lot of, I think, best player available.
You also can't pay anybody
spots.
else.
Exactly.
Yeah, so it's like
plays a
you
factor,
really
doesn't
need role players in some instances.
And you're tight on money, and there are guys that they want to bring back that they're going to have to pay. If you decide to bring back a Jordan Lewis, if you decide to bring back Oso Digizu, if you decide to extend Micah Parsons this offseason. So that's why this class is extremely important, and you got to be versatile in where you spread your picks.
Also, too, one more thing. Let's not walk past what Nick and what Brian was saying, too. Coaching is going to super matter here. Right. Like, we can be, okay, let's just look at offensive line. Let's just look at guards. Are we going to be doing wide zone? Are we going to be pushing guys around? Like, just that conversation is the difference between Tyler Booker or, like, Marcus and Bow, right?
Yeah.
Are you trying to reach people? Are you trying to push guys that way to, So we have to figure out who this coaching staff, and, hey, I ain't going to say nothing about nobody that owns this team in their building, but let's figure that out right now so that we can have a feel for what this team could look like so we can start evaluating players.
See, we're one segment into this show. That was what we spent the whole morning talking about
Talking Cowboys.
on Talking Cowboys.
There you go.
Let's get this thing done so that way we know what direction this team is headed right now, where you're going one way or the other. You either keep them or you don't, but let's make a decision so that way no one's guessing at this point. Because right now there's a lot of guessing going on.
Yeah, and only one man and a few others know really what the direction's going to be, and hopefully it's sooner than later. But when you work in this organization, you understand that later tends to win the day. So you got to be able to adjust and adapt, and that's what Will McClay and the staff is going to have to do. But they've got a big job ahead of them. I will say this though about this football team: when they are able to select the best player on their board, they win a lot of days.
Yes, they do.
Right.
They win the day when they're able to do that. So hopefully, much like everybody's talked about here, there's so many areas and so many directions this thing can go that you feel like sometimes you focus in on something and maybe that player goes and you feel like you got wiped out there. Here, if somebody goes ahead of you in those picks, you can at least feel good that we're going to have our stack. Those are our names. One of those guys is going to be a Dallas Cowboy, and most likely that guy's going to come in and help your football team.
I wonder what the odds were for Malachi Starks, defensive back out of Georgia, to be the first name mentioned on the draft show in 2025. It's interesting. I thought it would be Ashton Genty.
Is what I do.
I thought it would be Ashton Genty from Boise State,
but the first name that we mentioned last year on the draft show was Maris Leofau.
It was.
There you go.
All right.
So, hey, Malachi Starks.
Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah, might as well book
helmet.
it right now. There it is. Why was that the first name that came to mind?
I'm heavy in the, Twitter, X streets or whatever, and I just see some of the names floating around. We're not going to have a whole bunch of first-round grades here, guys. I got 11. Brian may have 13. You may have 10, 15, whatever.
Yeah.
And Malachi is one of them. And just because, the Cowboys kind of won some games towards the end of the season, there's this short group of guys that's in between 8 and 12. So I think Malachi is in their group, but we can hope that one of those other guys kind of fall down too. We're going to have conversations like this the whole draft season, trading up, trading back, and all this kind of little stuff. But Malachi just popped up in my head because free safety. I think there are luxuries and it's stuff that you need. Yeah, we need to figure out D-line. We're not that figured out there. We need wide receiver 2 running back. But I think free safety is a luxury. So if we're on the board and Malachi is there, he may be the best player. You're going to have to ask yourself, do I go with this kind of need, this luxury, or do we go let's build the base of this thing? I just think he's a polarizing player in that way.
I think it's interesting. You brought up the first-round grades already. It's so early on. But I had a conversation with a scout last week. He said the same thing. He said this is going to be a low first-round grade draft class. That's what the feel is from a league-wide standpoint, probably 10 to 12. Yep. Luckily, the Cowboys haven't mentioned it yet. They are picking number 12 in the NFL draft this year. They lost that final game, went from what would have been 17 down to 12. It helps you possibly hit one of those first-round graded guys. But does that change the way you scout, Brian, when you go into a draft with the mindset of, hey, there's only going to be a dozen guys with first-round grades?
No, I think that you just set your board. You look at your players, you set your board, and then whatever that number. We're going to get into this hot and heavy about these offensive tackles. It is not going to be like we've had in the past where we've had discussions about plug and play. There are a lot of questions about these guys. You're going to start to ask about the strengths of the position groups and where this thing's going to fall. So whether that number is 12 or 22, you're going to just do the same things that you normally do as far as get your board prepped.
How much do you feel like the current state of collegiate athletics plays a factor into that? NIL, transfer portal.
Yeah, you have a lot of kids
COVID.
with more
Are we
experience.
still doing the COVID thing for the
Last
year?
couple
This will be the
years.
last
7-year
year.
senior.
Yeah.
The 9-year at the kid, the McCormick.
Now everybody
kid
that's
at
playing
Miami.
JUCO is going to be here for 11 years.
Yeah, but I mean, we're going to talk about, if we're talking about the quarterback position, I think that's the easiest one to talk about when it comes to experience. We'll talk about guys like Dylan Gabriel, who's got a ton of experience, Kyle McCord, who's had a ton of experience. But you can look on the offensive line as well and see a ton of experience. And these kids are incentivized to go back to school if they have like a 4th, 5th round grade and coming out of their junior year, or if they have an extra year with the COVID year, they're incentivized to go back to school because they can make money. It's like, okay, then I can get my stock back up to the 2nd round. And you look at a guy like Ariante Ursary, the offensive tackle out of Minnesota. This is not a guy we would be talking about in the 1st round last year. So this is a good
Still
class
might not
for.
Yeah, me neither.
And that's going to be an interesting conversation as well. But
Yeah.
I think
the tackle group as a whole, and I'm looking forward to hearing your guys' thought because, Voch and I were talking about this on our show. We it's like, man, why is this group? Why am I struggling with this group right now? Why am I thinking I'm looking at a bunch of guards? Why am I thinking I'm,
that's fair.
That's there's not that surefire that. Boom! I'm going to put my name on this guy because I think there's several positions that have some kind of question marks when we break it all down.
Let's break it down in our next segment. Let's talk about what this draft is going to be known for. Kind of set the table early on. What can draft fans, what can Cowboys fans, NFL fans in general expect out of the 2025 NFL draft class? We've got more of the first episode of the 2025 DallasCowboys.com's draft show coming up right after this.
Here we go. Tyler from Dude Perfect here. Big news. We just dropped our very own Dude Perfect smoothie with Smoothie King.
We is strong. It's my recipe.
Technically, we all came up with it, Kobe.
I mean, you put a potato in yours.
I was experimenting.
Yeah, we picked up on that. Guys, this is fruit smoothie perfection. I even heard it recently quoted that it was food perfect.
Yeah, I was the one that said that.
Oh, that's funny. It's punny.
Thank you. Anyways, get the Dude Perfect smoothie only at Smoothie King.
My smoothie.
Hi, Drew Pearson, former Dallas Cowboy and now Pro Football Hall of Famer here. If you're struggling with your vision and tired of those contacts and glasses, don't throw a Hail Mary. Go where I went. Laser Care Eye Center, the official LASIK partner of the Dallas Cowboys.
Drew, thank you so much for trusting us with your vision correction procedure. At Laser Care Eye Center, we offer 6 different vision correction procedures to help patients see.
Check them out at dfweyes.com. Tell them Drew sent you. Hood, hood.
I'm Dak Prescott, quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys.
And they snap it to Prescott, who looks right. It's not there. He escapes left. He'll run for a first down.
Just like football, when it comes to crypto, it's important to have a team you can trust. With blockchain.com, I know I'm in good hands. Since 2011, they've been trusted by millions around the world to buy, sell, and trade cryptocurrency.
Prescott's going to run this himself. Run it up the middle, and he scores.
Whether you're new to crypto or an active trader, they've got you covered. What are you waiting for? Get started at blockchain.com.
Cowboys fans, when it comes to navigating the ever-changing world of tax, your business needs a partner it can trust to tackle even your biggest tax challenges. Ryan is the largest firm in the world dedicated exclusively to business taxes. Our team of tax professionals has local expertise in all areas of tax and can help you uncover savings opportunities you didn't know you had. Learn more about how Ryan can improve your overall corporate tax performance by visiting Ryan.com. Ryan, the official tax partner of the Dallas Cowboys.
This is the DallasCowboys.com Draft Show.
Welcome back to the Draft Show presented by Miller Lite, the only beer the Dallas Cowboys. It's Miller time. Also, Cowboys Nation, Amanda Foster has been named your 2024 Dallas Cowboys Fan of the Year, presented by Captain Morgan for her dedication to the team and spicing up the game. Vote for Amanda to be named the ultimate NFL Fan of the Year at NFL.com/Fan of the Year. Alongside Voch Lombardi, Tommy Yarrish, Bryan Broaddus, Nick Harris. I'm Kyle Youmans. First edition of the Draft Show. I thought it would only be fitting to, before we get into this 2025 class, what's the ultimate goal for the Cowboys and every other team that's drafting this year? You want to win a trophy, right?
Sure.
Yeah. Not just any trophy. You want to win the what, Voch?
The Voch trophy.
The Lombardi trophy.
Yeah,
it's your last name, dude.
It's a last name, the Lombardi Trophy. That's what we're trying to get to.
I just wanted to bring that up. I don't know. I just thought it was funny. It is kind of heavy. We need to polish this one. This one's a little messed up.
That was heavier than I expected.
But the Voch Lombardi Trophy, hell yeah.
The Voch Lombardi Trophy, right? Why not? I thought it would be fitting to have it in the room when Voch is here for the first time.
Kyle's a gentleman,
It's like vibranium.
I know like I said, it needs a little polish here. It's been a long time. All right, what is this draft class going to be known for? Let's take a look around position groups, weakest, strongest. I'll start with the strongest. Where do you feel like teams are going to have the most success, Brian, when it comes to the 2025 draft class?
I'm kind of got it caught between two. I kind of feel like I'm looking at right now this edge group has got some interesting characters to it. The running back room has got some interesting guys to it when you look at it. But I don't know in a long time have we seen this many one technique defensive tackles.
Yep.
You know, and so to me, I feel like that if there's some people that are interested in grabbing those 320-pound one techniques that have athletic ability, that play upfield, that are disruptive, haven't seen this group in a long time, but here we are. So if you're one of those teams that's struggling not only to defend the run, but a lot of these guys have the ability to push the pocket and get some pressure in the passing game as well. I kind of feel like that's something that teams. I mean, Mason Graham from Michigan, right off the jump. I mean, he's going to go very, very early in this draft, and I'll tell you what, I think whoever drafts him is going to get a hell of a football player out of him. So, I look at that kind of the group has got me excited because I know that's something that Dallas is kind of looking at themselves.
Tommy, you like those defensive tackles as well?
Yeah, Brian stole it right from me. This defensive tackle class is one that I like a lot. You mentioned Mason Graham from Michigan. His counterpart, Kenneth Grant, too. Yeah. Really good player, 6'3", 339 pounds. Yep. And boy, he plays like he's 250 pounds.
Sure
the way
does.
that he's able to move around really well. I'm a big fan of Walter Nolan out of Ole Miss. More of an athletic guy, but still a big plugger up in the middle, and he can do a lot of things for you. He was the #1 player in his high school class, #1 recruit. So he's been great across the board, both at Texas A&M and Ole Miss. And then you've got your other guys like Deion Walker, who was talked about a lot early on as a first-round guy. I think he can still be that. I think there's some things you want to mix in there, but 6'6", 345 pounds, there's a lot that you can work with that frame. And then T.J. Sanders, too, at South Carolina, 6'4", 290 pounds. I like his game a lot. So defensive tackles, but running backs down, too. I think there's a lot of value in that running back class, which is something that maybe the Cowboys could have explored last year. We'll see if they learn their lesson this time around.
Boy, Kyle, I can just hear all the Cowboy fans right now. Oh, not another Michigan. Not all this Michigan stuff going on. Listen.
Defensive lineman from Michigan.
Chill out, y'all. Look, so you could have Taco and Miles. You could have that. But you could have Aiden Hutchinson. You could have Rashawn Gary. Wink Martindale got these dudes playing different, man. These dudes get upfield. These dudes slant fronts. These dudes get up. They whoop. I don't know if I can say they weren't your shot, but they whoop for ass. Yeah. They whoop ass, people. Look, so when we talk about Mason Graham, we're probably not going to draft Mason Graham, but Kenny Grant is a guy that I like a whole bunch. And normally, this is how I typically feel about one tech, is they're either going to be like a top 10 sort of guy, or they're going to go in the 7th round or something. Like this year particularly, I got a lot of dudes that's right in the 2nd, and they all get upfield, and they all run fast. They all got motors. So just to mention a guy that we didn't mention, Derek Harmon from Oregon. Nice. Defense tackle from Oregon. He's going to be a guy that's in that conversation. And if you're the Cowboys, you may need 1 or 2 defensive tackles. And some of these one techs can play 3 because they get upfield like that. Yeah. So it's a lot of options.
Yeah, early contender for name of the class is a defensive tackle, Tonka Hemingway.
No way.
Big Tonka. Big Tonka. So I'm going to talk about this edge class and this running back class. I'm with you. I'm with the table on those two positions probably having some more value on day 3. You could look up top at the edge group. I mean, you look at James Pierce Jr. in the year he's had. It's been up and down at times, but I still think he has a lot of traits there that you can work with. Abdul Carter, and there's no question he's edge 1 in this class. You look at the training regimen that he put in over the offseason in Happy Valley, how it's applied to the field here in his senior year. He's still got a couple of games to go if health permits for Penn State, but super solid. You look at this Ohio State duo of Jack Sawyer and JT Tuimoloau. Those are 2 guys as well who are talking about for top recruit. Yeah, Tuimoloau.
That's good.
Talking about top recruits that have really panned out for Ohio State. And Tuimoloau, this is a guy we talked about last year potentially coming out, and I was surprised he went back for another year. And I think it worked out for him. You're talking about second round value. I think you can find some second round value in a lot of these edges. You look at Umami Ellen, Tuimolo. Wow.
You showing off now. Chill out.
I wasn't trying to.
Chill out. Say
like,
the easy name. Say Green. Say Walker.
Donovan Isaiah Ruwaka. Boston College.
I'll tell you, he's a nice player.
Donovan can play. Donovan can say.
Yeah, led the FBS in sacks during the regular season out of Boston College. Now, he's got some physical traits that are probably a little bit limited, but I think you look at his motor, you look at his tool bag, he can get around there in a hurry. And then Danny Dennis-Sutton, that's a guy on day 3 out of Penn State that I've really loved his entire career. Known him since his middle high school years, and I think he has a lot of traits that you can work with. But this running back conversation, it's going to be one we talk about on almost every show, just because Ashton Jeanty, you could probably give it about a 65% chance that he's going to be there at number 12. And there's going to have to be a conversation had about Ashton Jeanty. Do you go ahead and you go grab the guy who finished number 2 in Heisman voting, made it one of the closer Heisman races against Travis Hunter in recent memory? Do you go grab that guy? I am on the table of saying no, only because of how deep this running back class is. You can go get a guy on day 3 that can work out for you. You look at potential day 3 names. You look at Jordan James out of Oregon. I really love what he's been putting together. Didn't play in the Rose Bowl a whole lot, and you saw the offense suffer as a result. DJ Giddens out of Kansas State. Now, I think he's going to sneak into day 2. That's a guy you have to love as far as late round value. RJ Harvey, UCF. I think this is going to be one of the bigger sleepers at the position as we move on.
Senior Bowl guy, too.
Okay, Nick, I'll challenge you on this one on Jeanty.
Yeah.
Is he going to be your best player on your board when you pick at 12?
Probably.
Wow.
Okay,
Probably.
and so then there's nobody else that you would take over him then, right? If you the way you would stack it, would he?
I haven't stacked guys.
I know you haven't, but
so it's like it's. I don't
know. First show, I'm asking you this question because again, I'm seeing you make a point. And there's a lot of people that they're saying talking about the depth. I'm kind of curious of what direction you would go instead of maybe taking Jeanty if he was the best player on your board.
Parachute.
Yeah, you would pull the parachute. Trade out.
Why not pick up some more day 2 value, and especially if you feel at 12 you only have 1 or 2 first round guys left, and it's Jeanty's might be your only first round grade left. Let's just throw that out for a hypothetical. Parachute back because you're going to get a running back on day 3. And there's not a lot of value in a lot of these positions on day 3. Talking to scouts around the league, they do not feel great about round 6, round 7, even the back end of round 5. So get more picks in the first couple of days.
You bring up something interesting. Then I don't mean to pivot on this, but the 6 and the 7s, do you now throw those in on deals? Do you think you could throw those deals to move up? That's instead of thinking
move
about
up from 12.
Yeah, well, move up. Yeah, if you don't feel like that, if scouts around the league, and I haven't talked to my gang of 7 about this myself, but you're ahead of me on that. But I wonder if you take those 6 and 7s and throw them on deals and try and move up instead of trading back. Think about now going up if you don't like the depth of this draft.
That's valid. Yeah.
I'm interested to see because, like you said, if Jeanty is the guy there, it's going to be a tantalizing conversation for the front office, for whoever is. Yeah, see, I'm trying to show off now, but for the front office, for the coaching staff, whichever one is here. You had Rico Dowdle. I think bringing Rico Dowdle back is a possibility, but it's not a foregone conclusion.
What do y'all think? 2 years, $8 million?
Nah, he gonna want more than that.
I don't know.
Rico might want more than that.
You think so?
Yeah, he'll want more than that. I don't know what his value is.
I don't know what his value would say more than that.
That's going to be a very interesting conversation as far as free agency goes because they cannot bring Rico Dowdle back. Then they're in a pinch at running back for sure.
And to play devil's advocate, they've had that same mindset in terms of running back the last couple of years. Oh, we're going to get one on day 2. We're going to get one on day 3, early day 3, and it just hasn't happened. The one pick that you ended up using was Deuce Vaughn in the 6th round in 2023. You've gone into this draft thinking, oh, Zach Charbonnet will be there in the 3rd round, and they weren't able to get him. Oh, you'll think about these guys, Johnson from Texas a couple years ago. They really liked him going into the 2nd or the 3rd round, didn't end up getting him. Yeah. You go into it thinking, okay, this is a deep draft class of running backs, but then a run happens before you and you're kind of hamstrung from that point forward. Can you afford to do that again when the only running back under contract right now going into 2025 is Deuce Vaughn?
I think whenever you look at the positional strengths in this draft, I don't think you're going to have a draft like you did in 2018 where 7 of them go in the first 2 rounds.
That'd be wild.
I think you're going to have more so a draft from 2017 where you get 30 of them go in 7 rounds. And there's a ton on on day 3. Just because you look at the value. If you're a team out there and you're like, okay, this is the conversation I'm having with the Cowboys right here. Hey, I'm sitting here picking at 58 in the second round. Yeah, we need a running back, and we have a couple of guys there that we really like, but if we don't get this edge right now, or not edge, that's a bad example. If we don't get this receiver right now, because I don't love this receiver class, if Restrepo's on the board, you got to grab that guy because you're not going to get a talented receiver on day 3
He's
by
Miami,
your board,
right?
by looking at your board. Yeah. So I think, yes, Miami. Now y'all got to get on me, but I think that's probably the conversation that a lot of teams are going to be having when it comes to these running backs. So you're going to see that run on day 3, and it's going to go for a while, kind of like what we saw last year in round 4.
Yeah,
but I think it's going to go even further than that.
But see, Kyle, to Brian's point, right? What if Genty is there and we looking at the phone and that thing ain't ringing? It's just not ringing, and we can't move back. Do you really move away from that guy, or do you draft somebody that you just not feeling like you feel Genty? Because there's 2 players, and we were just talking about edges. There's 2 players that's on this board right around that time. And I've been looking at a lot of mock drafts, and I would rather take Genty over a Michael Williams from Georgia. So right, I feel really good about Genty. I feel maybe about Williams. You see what I'm saying? So
would you see Genty as foregone conclusion?
See, that's
first round.
I think he's the better dude.
That's why I was going to ask Nick. I go, if we're trading back, who we settle? You give me a position. You don't even have to give me a name.
Yeah.
But how far back do we need to go? I mean, like I know Voch and I, again, doing our show last night, we talked about moving back, and we were kind of in that 15. We were trying to look for teams with multiple picks. I think we came up with the Rams. And Rams are an aggressive team, but you're trying to find teams with. I'm not interested in your 2026s. I need picks now is what I need. So I wonder if to me, I just had this gut that Genty is going to be the cleanest player that you deal with. Now, the number of carries and all that is a concern. Don't get me wrong. I'm not throwing that out the window. But, man, I mean, you start to talk about the character, the player, the ability, all these things. Okay, I'm trading away from that for where am I going?
Sure.
What am I? Okay, now I'm picking up with a player with ability. Wait a minute, he's not healthy. Maybe you're looking at Ravel, the corner from East Carolina, or maybe Simmons,
Josh Simmons,
the offensive
both guys
tackle
out for the year.
Yeah, both guys dealing with knee surgeries and stuff like that. If Dr. Cooper tells me, "Hey, go, we got clean, we're good, let's do this," but still, there's I'm trading away from maybe the surefire guy to maybe I'm trading in for question marks just to pick up a couple of picks.
Yeah,
does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. It just depends what the value looks like. I think in a deal like that, because you can get a guy like a Jalen Walker, or you can get a guy like
from where?
From Georgia, linebacker from Georgia.
He's a good player. No, I mean, okay. If you tell me you're going back and you go back and you end up with some guy like Walker and stuff like that,
that's cool.
I'm totally cool on that.
Yeah.
I'm totally cool on if you go back and heck, I'm all about picking Barron from Texas.
Player.
I mean, I'm all about that too. If you tell me that's where we're going back for, it's not. But I think the further back you go in this draft, in the first round especially, the more questions you're probably going to have about these players.
I think it's a situation
I'm trying to limit my mistakes.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I understand that completely. And it depends what that board looks like whenever you get to 12 as well. Because you look at a sense from last year, whenever we were expecting at 24, you're going to have multiple options there. You're probably going to have a good chance to parachute back. I think now it's probably just there will be a chance you could parachute back. I don't think it's as good as
the best damn corner was on the board for you. I felt like
Graham Barton was still there too.
Yeah, I mean you had some guys. Arnold at the Lions took so
he played pretty well, didn't he?
Yeah, sure did.
With all that being said, you mentioned wide receiver. I know Tommy, you had brought this up too. Wide receiver, maybe not the same level of class we've seen over the last few years, where you're going to go deep into the third and you're going to get all these wide receivers. It's a need for Dallas. Wide receiver 2 is a significant need for the Cowboys. If they're trading out and they're parachuting, how far can you go and still be confident you're drafting your wide receiver 2?
I don't think very far. I think this is a very thin wide receiver class. If you had your pick of wide receivers that would be better for Dallas, I think Tetairoa McMillan from Arizona is probably your guy. He's 6'5", 212 pounds.
It's wide receiver 1 right now.
Yeah, he's my wide receiver 1. Just uber athlete. I mean, what he's able to do at his size is phenomenal. I wouldn't necessarily say he's a elite 50-50 ball guy, but his traits can make him one. I think he jumps out of the building. So go ahead.
So the room, real quick, the room then has Hunter all playing corner?
Yes.
Hunter, corner.
Majority corner.
You're still playing him two ways?
I think there's going to be an opportunity for him.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm trying to think of
somebody takes
I
him in
think
the
Tom
first,
is
they
absolutely
will.
right.
Yeah, sure.
I think we're right about wide receiver 1 if Hunter is not. If Hunter's
primarily a corner.
Okay, then if that's the case, then McMillan is.
Would Hunter be wide receiver 1 for you?
You know what? I think there is an argument that I would make to try and make him wide receiver 1.
Wow.
I think I would. I think to me the way the teams could probably go away from him if he plays corner. Now, does that help you in the game? Yeah, it helps you. But what if you have a guy on the other side of the field, one of the 7 cornerbacks you used this year opposite Bland? You know, that kind of thing. I mean, that corner works until somebody figures out that they could go attack somebody else. With Hunter playing wide receiver, I'm just going to load him up. I'm going to load him up. Just you can't stop this kid. I'm just going to keep throwing the ball. I'm going to have to he's making plays. I'm handing it to him. I'm doing all these things to try and get him the football. I just feel like there could be an argument for him for wide receiver 1.
Is he your corner 1?
He's my corner 1. But I also, though, I could very easily take backspace and move him all the way across my board to wide receiver 1 too. You know, so that's kind of where. But I just wondered where the room stood. Is anybody going to argue that he could be wide receiver 1? And it's not. It's not a factor for the Cowboys. I'm just saying for the people out there who listen to our show might not be Cowboy fans, but just draft people.
Travis would be like wide receiver 3 for me. You know, he's a bona fide yak guy, deep ball, ball tracking type stuff, you know, and you can just move him anywhere or whatever.
So you got McMillan as 1.
I got McMillan 1, Burden 2. Burden from Missouri.
I like Burden a lot. Slot guy.
And Burden is a better bona fide yak guy to me. Like,
Yes,
it's hard to tackle that guy. So I'm putting Travis at 3, but what makes Travis like the number 1 overall guy is that he could be your number 1 corner and your number 3 receiver. So for me, I'm playing him full-time corner, and maybe in a game, 7 targets, 6 targets, something like that, maybe, you know, deep ball with him, something like that. But as far as like the best wide receiver, he's like the 3rd guy for me.
I would put him right there with like Isaiah Bond from Texas, Trey Harris from Ole Miss, a couple of those guys that are up there in that realm. I don't think he's up there with Restrepo from Miami, Burden from Missouri, and then McMillan's my top guy as well from Arizona. Those are the 3 wide receivers there. And I don't have an abundance of confidence in the wide receiver class as a whole either. It's not like I'm saying these guys are going to be CeeDee Lamb down the line. That's not the case. I don't have that same level of confidence. So if you trade out from 12 and you pull the parachute, 15, 16, 17, if you still have an eye on a receiver?
Yeah.
Is that where you're at?
I don't know if you're taking a receiver. I don't know if you can take a receiver with the first pick. I really don't for the Cowboys. I don't.
12,
you do need another receiver to be the Robin to CeeDee Lamb.
Is there going to be that in the 2nd or the 3rd though?
That's where you need some action in free agency. That's where you have to go get a guy that can help out.
I think this guy right here will fight you that he would take Burton at 12.
I would definitely take Burton at 12.
I wouldn't mind it.
Where would you put CeeDee Lamb in that
case?
Because he's a slot guy. Burden is. He can play outside. He did so a little bit at Missouri, but where would you put those guys?
See, Lamb goes everywhere.
Yes.
So you could just move Lamb where Burden is not, and then Burden can go wherever
Just make
Lamb
it
is
happen
not.
either way.
I think what Dallas really needs is like a true X, like a XXX, like a big dude on the outside, tough catches, you know, catch the ball away from the body. Savion Williams, TCU wide receiver. I was just looking at him. And I'm like, hey. Big body, 6'5", can run a little bit, catch the ball pretty decent, got some drops, whatever. And with those drops, they just kind of hand the ball to him. They let him do direct snap stuff, but just a yak guy. And this goes back to your previous question, right? Like, what are you trying to build here? And if you look at, let's say, a team like the Niners, right? They just got all yak guys. They do different things, but they're yak guys, right? I would love to have a team full of yak guys at XZ, slot Y, whatever you want to do, right? So that's just a handful of guys. But to y'all's point, we should get wide receiver relatively early because later on, they won't exist.
Burden, when I was watching Burden, I wrote down, I feel like I'm watching CeeDee Lamb with the way that Mizzou used him in their offense, just because some of those quick outs and stuff like that in the slot. But I also wrote down, there's no problem with having 2 CeeDee Lambs on your team.
Sure.
I don't think anybody's turning that down. So I think there are some guys that if you were to go late in a wide receiver, if you were to try to wait and push it back maybe 2nd, 3rd round, I think if you try to do that, I'm looking at guys like Trey Harris from Ole Miss. That's a guy who's played a lot of football. Some health question marks there, but he can be one of your X guys. Ja'Cory Brooks from Louisville, Alabama transfer. I feel like that could be maybe a late round guy that if he tests well, I don't know if he's a Senior Bowl or Shrine Bowl guy.
He's not,
but
not yet, anyways.
If he has a good performance there, he has a good combine, I think that's a guy you can maybe push later in the rounds. But I would agree with that. If you take a wide receiver early, you're probably looking at Burden at 12 would be the pick there.
Savion Williams, by the way, from TCU, is a Senior Bowl invite. So you'll see him out in Mobile for a little bit there. All right, let's take our second break. When we come back, who are some of the early pet cats? We love talking about pet cats on this show. Voch knows what a pet cat is, and he hasn't even been on the show before. So that's what it's all about. We're going to talk about that, some of the early names you need to keep an eye on outside of what we've already mentioned here on the first episode of the Draft Show in 2025.
I'm Darren Woodson, former Dallas Cowboy player and Super Bowl champion. When I played in the NFL at a high level, I relied on my vision to see the field. As I started getting older, I noticed my vision wasn't as good, and I was getting frustrated from wearing my glasses all day. I went to Laser Care Eye Center, and Dr. G talked about all the options. Thanks to technology and Laser Care Eye Center, I can see near, far, and between. Don't fumble your vision any longer. Visit them at dfweyes.com and tell them Darren sent you. They got me back on my game.
Star Sports Tours is the only official fan travel partner of the Dallas Cowboys, offering exclusive game weekend travel packages with pre-game sideline access and photo ops with current players, cheerleaders, and Cowboy legends. You want to stay at a team hotel, attend the best tailgate party in Texas, tour the Star, and talk X's and O's with me, Everson Walls? With Star Sports Tours, you can. Visit cowboystravel.com to book your travel package today.
Here we go. Tyler from Dude Perfect here. Big news. We just dropped our very own Dude Perfect smoothie with Smoothie King.
We is strong. It's my recipe.
Technically, we all came up with it, Kobe?
I mean, you put a potato in yours.
I was experimenting.
Yeah, we picked up on that. Guys, this is fruit smoothie perfection. I even heard it recently quoted that it was food perfect.
Yeah, I was the one that said that.
Oh, that's funny. It's punny.
Thank you. Anyways, get the Dude Perfect smoothie only at Smoothie King.
My smoothie.
How about them Cowboys? Or how about them Tyson Cowboys Nuggets? As we cheer for the stars on the field, we love that we've also got some stars on our plate, thanks to Tyson brand star-shaped Cowboys Nuggets. That, along with all our other favorite Tyson Foods products, sure make game day special. Score some delicious Tyson Cowboys Nuggets and become a game day star, just like our Cowboys. As you enjoy your stars on and off the plate, remember, tailgates and game day have always been Tyson.
This is the DallasCowboys.com Draft Show.
The biggest names in tennis head to the Ford Center at the Star in Frisco this February. Witness top-ranked Casper Ruud and former Dallas Open champion American Tommy Paul dazzle on the court as the Dallas Open moves to a new home. Catch all the hard-hitting action and watch the top players on tour compete live. Tickets are available now at SeatGeek.com. Big tennis guy, right, Brian?
Any chance we can get Jake Paul to fight Tommy Paul?
Who's the best Paul?
Casper Paul. Who are we talking about? What's it?
Tommy Paul.
Tommy Paul.
And Casper Ruud.
Yeah, Casper Ruud, big time.
Casper Ruud sounds like
what school is that?
Yeah, Casper Ruud sounds like a good Nebraska linebacker.
Scooby Wright type name. Character. Yeah.
Scooby Wright. There you go.
Yeah. Linebacker from Nebraska. It said hard-hitting action, so that's their scouting report on him. So there you go. All right, back here on the Draft Show, final segment as we wrap up our first edition. Again, we'll have Bobby Belt and Zach Wolchuk on the show coming up on Thursday. Excited to have those fellas back in the building as well. Wanted to cap off by just throwing out some names. Of course, we're very early on in the draft process. There are a lot of draft fans at home listening, writing down names so that they can go and watch their own film, which we encourage. Of course, Brian, when we started, or you guys started the show, not we, but you guys started the show back in the day, investigate and educate.
That was us.
You wanted to get...
Still us, yeah.
Still the case, and that's what really the whole point of this is you go watch your film too.
Yeah.
Make your boards, have some fun that way. And we love comparing whenever we go along and then having those conversations as we get closer to April. Brian, I'll let you start. Your early pet cats or names that you think all those at home should be keeping an eye on.
I'll tell you what, I'm going to tell you about Mike Green from Marshall, and he is an edge rusher. Yeah, he's a transfer from Virginia. And this is really a twitched up edge rusher. Both sides of the formation, explosive on the get off, quick first step, some natural bend. He's got pass rush moves, SWAT, all those things you want to do with your hand. The ability to get up the field. Man, he could change direction. I love this kid just because. Yeah, he came from Virginia. Virginia kind of some up and down play there. Marshall, kind of same with him, but this guy plays hard all the time. He's 6'4", he's 248. He does not look light in his uniform. You see that 248, but he does not. He looks like a big guy there, and I love the way that he could put his hand down. He could also stand up. Love the burst, love the chase. I could say the only real deficiency I see was the lack of bulk. But, man, he plays a lot stronger than 248. Mike Green, Marshall edge.
Sunbelt champion Marshall Thundering Herd, too. Had a good year out there. What do you think, Tommy?
Yeah, I've got a couple. You talked about Jahdae Barron earlier from Texas. That's a guy at 12 that the Cowboys, I would be pretty satisfied with that just because he's got positional versatility. One guy kind of deeper in the draft that I really like is Nick Martin, linebacker from Oklahoma State. Didn't play a lot this year, got hurt a couple games in with, I think, a knee injury. Missed most of the year with a knee injury, but when he played his junior season last year, he has 140 tackles for Oklahoma State that helped lead them to a Big 12 championship appearance. They got doused by Texas. But nonetheless, 6 sacks, a forced fumble, 2 picks as well. Just watching him in that Big 12 title game, I thought he played really well. You look at him more as like a Mike linebacker, which Dallas very well may need depending on what happens with Eric Kendricks, and you look at where Maris Leofau fits into the equation in the future. So just versatile guy. I think he's really smart, plays very high football IQ. Again, the injury would be the only question mark, but a lot to like with Nick Martin. And Texas guy, Texarkana.
Okay, so Texas guy. Yeah. When you talk about Martin specifically, you talk about the Mike linebacker scenario. What does he do best? What is his calling card?
I think he's a great tackler.
Okay.
I think when you look at what Eric Kendricks does so well for this Cowboys defense is his experience and his sideline to sideline getting ball carriers to the ground. Nick Martin can do that for you, and I think he can add in that coverage element too, and can get after the passer too. He had in 2 games this year, or a couple games this year, he had a sack as well. So a lot to like.
He will be at the Senior Bowl this year as well.
Looking forward to it.
Voch.
Let me just start by saying what I'm hating now. I'm hating this new trend of the 300-pound guard. You know, the athletic can move good guy. I hate the way that you walk. I hate these quick little guards, these little light guards, man. Give me a 320-pound guard. Give me Tyler Booker from Alabama, ladies and gentlemen. I like when bodies hit the floor. I like when you can move people out of A-gap. I like when your combos are devastating. And that Bama offensive line, they got some nasty dudes there. So they all work together in tandem.
Their losses were not on their offensive line. Don't get me wrong. It was on their quarterback. We'll talk about that later on too.
And Booker just carries this nastiness about him. And he carries this confidence. Like, I'm about to quick set. I'm about to grab you, grip strength you, and you're not going to move. Sometimes that kind of gets him in trouble. He'll get a little leany, a little over his heels, and he'll fall all over the place sometimes because of loss of balance. But what's the point of having Duke Manyweather across the street if you can't fix balance in a player? What I want to do is take it back to the old Cowboy days. We got a Ron Leary, a Travis, and a daggum Zach Martin. Give me a Tyler and another Tyler with that Cooper Beebe. You can make your O-line strong again, and you can move A-gap all you want to. Tyler Booker is a dude, and he was whooping Bryan Broaddus' LSU Tigers, and he tried to act like he didn't do it, but all the LSU kids were on the floor of Bryan Broaddus because Tyler Booker is a guy, and that's my pick. That's my first pick.
I'm so glad you went to that as your first tape.
I had to.
You're like, Broaddus is an LSU guy. I gotta
look at Broaddus and LSU.
Sure. That's the first thing. He and I do a show every night, and the first thing he says, I watched that LSU Alabama game. You got nobody up front.
That was some good tape. No wonder.
That was it. It was an ass kicking. You're absolutely right. That was some good tape. That was some good tape.
Jalen Milroe played pretty good in that. I got 2 Jalen Milroe truthers to both sides of me right
absolutely.
here.
We'll get into it. That's a pet cat for me.
He had 11 picks this year. He tried to hand games over to plenty of people.
That conversation's for another day.
Yeah, you think so?
Have time for me to debate you on this one.
I'm not watching quarterbacks till April, so y'all.
We'll have it in April. Then.
Y'all go ahead and talk about it.
I called the Auburn-Alabama game, and he tried to give that game to Auburn 4 different times with 4 different turnovers, and Auburn was not good enough to take advantage.
Georgia game.
Crazy.
I did watch the Georgia game. He was pretty good there, too.
All right.
Yeah, watch the LSU game, too. He was really good.
He was pretty good there, too.
Really good.
He's a good runner.
Yeah.
Yeah, not a good thrower.
That's what they
All
said
right,
about Lamar
continue.
Jackson.
What was that?
That's what they said about Lamar Jackson.
He is not Lamar Jackson. Let me be
I'm
very
just saying
clear.
that's what they said about Lamar Jackson.
Not Lamar Jackson. All right, who's your pet cat? Jalen Milroe.
This is going to be tough because I want to give 3, so I'm going to give like 3 really quick ones.
All right.
I'm going to start at the running back position just because this is one we're going to talk about a lot. Kyle Monangai out of Rutgers. He is a bowling ball at 5'9", 210 pounds. He's a New Jersey native that stayed home at Rutgers and stayed there for 5 years.
Running back, right?
His entire career, yes,
Correct.
at running back. And he is 5'9", but I think he's one of the better pass protectors in this class. You look at guys trying to come down an A-gap blitz, and he's right there to blow them and throw them out of the club. I love this kid. He fights for extra yardage. He's a 5 yards per carry guy throughout his entire career. I think this is a guy that if you sleep on and it's still on the board when day 3 comes around, you're going to miss out on that one. I feel the same way about Kyle Monangai that I felt about Bucky Irving a year ago, in the sense of like, yeah, okay, this guy might be small, but he plays bigger than he is, and he's gonna be a good pro. The only thing that keeps me concerned about Monangai is 669 total carries during his college career. So certainly something to keep an eye on. Does this team need a tight end?
They're going to take one every year.
Yeah.
Maybe undrafted, but they'll find one every year.
Go ahead and talk about Mason Taylor if you want from LSU.
I'm talking about Harold Fannin Jr. out of Bowling Green.
I'll tell you what, Senior Bowl guy, right?
Yeah.
I talked to Jim Nagy about him. They're really excited about having him down.
He
in
might
Mobile.
be tight end 1.
Yeah, no.
You don't think so?
Tyler Warren, absolutely.
We'll talk about it.
Loveland from Michigan's not bad.
Loveland's
He's
good
pretty
too.
good too. Those are my top 3.
Jason Taylor from LSU. I'm just telling you. Watch that kid.
But Harold Fannin Jr. broke the FBS record this year for receptions by a tight end and receiving yards by a tight end. Now, granted, he plays he plays in the MAC, so there's not a lot. The MACtion. There's not a lot of defensive prowess that he goes up against whenever he's playing over there. I like Toledo's defense, and he played well against Toledo. He had a touchdown in that game. He had his second lowest total yardage in that game throughout the season, though. But you look at some of these numbers that he posted: 12, 193, and 2, 10, 171, 17 receptions for 213 yards in the bowl game. He's long. He can get up and go over guys. He's a guy who could line up on the outside if you wanted to. Now the blocking, that would be the biggest question, because they just didn't ask him to do a whole lot of that. They just threw the ball to him. 6'4", 230 pounds though, and seeing what Lunda Wells, if this coaching staff is still around, seeing what Lunda Wells, what some of those guys have done with John Stevens Jr. and being able to make him a better blocker, and we saw that this past year, even with the ACL recovery, we saw better blocking out of him in the preseason this year. But I think this is a guy who, with this staff that's currently here, they can make Harold Fannin Jr. a star. And the last one I'll throw out, Davison Igbenison, the corner out of Ohio State, 6'2", 193 pounds. Formerly at Ole Miss, he was a 4-star product out of New Jersey, actually right down the street from Kyle Monangai, so I'm staying with my Jersey boys this time around. But anytime we see Ohio State, and I know me and Tommy, we bond on this guy. Anytime we watch Ohio State, this guy's locking things down. This guy's making plays. He's getting after the ball. He's fighting with receivers. I love his physicality on the outside. I think he's a guy who you could throw on the outside and have a lot of fun with. And he's getting 6th, 7th round grades. I highly disagree. I think it's a guy you could take in the 3rd or 4th.
That would be interesting. By the way, not my words, but Jim Nagy's words. The most prolific tight end in this year's NFL draft is heading to Mobile. I'm talking about Harold Fannin Jr. out of Bowling Green.
Good marketing.
They made a hype video out of him.
Jim gets a nice roster there every year.
Yeah, he does.
He does takes a lot of pride in that.
Today or this year is no different. He is continuing to stack. That was only 4 hours ago that they announced it, by the way. So heads up to you guys for staying on top of that. So Harold Fannin Jr., I got some pet cats. How about that? All the way through as we wrap up this first edition of the Draft Show. Gentlemen, it was good talking with you. Welcome to the show, Voch. Welcome to the show, Tommy.
Thanks, guys.
Brian, Nick, great to be back with you guys. Excited to be here all off-season long. It's going to be a long, long off-season.
Yeah. We're going to have a lot to talk about on this show.
Yes, we are.
Not just draft.
Fights. Yes, you're exactly right. All right, that does it for us. For Tommy Yarrish, Bryan Broaddus, Voch Lombardi, for Nick Harris, I'm Kyle Youmans. Chris Beam in the back saying so long. We'll see you on Thursday for the next Draft Show.
This has been a production of DallasCowboys.com and the Dallas Cowboys Football Club.
How about this, Cowboys? Yeah!